Hi, it's Andy here at Photech Video. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the photos which I obtained by using the Osmo Action 3 camera to take still photographs around the beautiful town where I live. Knowing that the Osmo Action 3 takes absolutely amazing video, I decided that maybe I could get good results by using the Osmo Action 3 as a still camera. So I waited for one of those few and far between early January sunny days, and off I went with my Osmo Action 3, an empty memory card, and 3 fully charged batteries. Looking forward to capturing some random photos around the beautiful town where I live. However, things do not always go according to plan. Stick around to find out what went wrong and for my honest opinion and thoughts, as well as some example photos. I bought the Osmo Action 3 at the end of July 2023, and I've been very happy with the excellent quality video which this camera can produce. We all know that the Osmo Action 3 video capabilities are amazing, and there are thousands of YouTube videos out there which testify to this. However, there are not many which talk about the photographic capabilities which the Osmo Action 3 offers. The Osmo Action 3 takes JPEG and RAW photos at 12 megapixels, which may not sound like a high resolution. However, most phone manufacturers downscale their photos to a usable 12 megapixels, even though, of course, their sensors are very often much larger than that. Even the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max produce 12 megapixel photos by default, using a pixel binning algorithm to reduce the resolution. So my plan was to use my Osmo Action 3 and shoot JPEGs in manual exposure mode and use them for this video straight out of camera with just a white border added to them so that you could see exactly what this camera can produce. Now, as the Osmo Action 3 is primarily an action camera, the field of view is extremely wide. In fact, the narrowest field of view, which is called standard D-warp, is the equivalent of a 14mm lens on a full-frame DSLR or mirrorless camera, and has exaggerated distortion to straight lines, making them bend, especially at the sides and at the top and bottom. And this is simply too wide a field of view for the street photography which I wanted to do. The Osmo Action 3 has a digital zoom function with incremental increases from 1 times up to 4 times zoom, which means that it's the equivalent of a 14mm to 56mm zoom lens on a DSLR or mirrorless full-frame camera. Now, I am definitely not an advocate of using a digital zoom, as it crops in the image and does not use the whole of the image sensor. However, it does solve the problem of the distortion at the sides and makes it possible to compose a more natural photo using the digital zoom. So, what happened? What went wrong? Well, I'm so used to snapping away on my Sony ZV E10 mirrorless APS-C camera, which shows the file format on the rear screen as RAW, even though in the menu it's set to RAW plus JPEG versions of the same photo. And I'm not used to using a digital zoom either. And this is where my problems began. My Osmo Action 3 was set to RAW, and I hadn't realized that the Osmo Action 3 only takes either RAW or JPEG. After 3 hours of walking around the beautiful city where I live, on a beautiful January's day, and taking loads of photos of different subjects using the manual exposition mode and using the digital zoom to compose each of those photos to crop in to the subject which I wanted and which looked absolutely superb on the rear screen of my camera, I went home and downloaded the photos to my laptop. And then I discovered my mistake. Even though my laptop shows a preview of each of the photos in the image viewer with a similar color profile and composition as what I saw on the rear screen of my Osmo Action 3, these were in fact only previews. However, there were no JPEG files, only RAW files. And when I clicked on the photo, it opened up in my RAW editor, and of course the photo was as the sensor saw it. On the one hand, the exposition and colors were all reset to RAW, and on the other hand, the digital zoom, which I had used to reduce the distortion and to compose the photo the way I wanted, was not applied on opening the photo in my RAW editor, which, as you can imagine, was an enormous disappointment for me, as after more than 3 hours composing photos exactly as I wanted, I now had a batch of RAW files with an extremely distorted field of view and without the color and exposition profiles which I wanted, which meant that I would not be able to show you straight out of camera JPEGs as I originally planned to. Now, part of the moral of this story is check that the settings on your camera are the correct ones and that they will give you the results which you want before taking your photos. Lesson learned. So I decided to do two things. First, to convert the 1 megapixel previews, which I could see on my laptop in my image viewer, to JPEGs, so that I could at least show you the color profile and composition which you can get from the Osmo Action 3. And second, I decided to go out for another walk around my beautiful city and take more photos on the Osmo Action 3, this time with the camera set to JPEG, not RAW, and again using the manual exposure mode and the digital zoom to reduce the distortion in the wide field of view and to compose the photos the way I wanted, so that I could show you real, straight out of camera JPEG photos taken on the Osmo Action 3. So first, let's take a look at those converted previews from my original shoot. Please remember that they are only 1 megapixel photos, not the full 12 megapixel photos which the Osmo Action 3 camera can produce in JPEG. So the definition is not good. However, I wanted to show you the results of my mistake. Well, as you could see, the resolution was very low, but the colors and the possibility to compose the photos using the digital zoom on the Osmo Action 3 inspired me to go out again on that second walk and take more photos. So let's take a look at my second attempt. Remember that these examples are taken in JPEG in manual exposure mode using the digital zoom to reduce the distortion and field of view and to create the composition which I was looking for in each particular image. Most of these examples were taken with the digital zoom at its maximum of 4 times, the equivalent of about 56 millimeters on a full frame camera. And a few of them were taken at 3 times digital zoom, which is the equivalent of about 42 millimeters on a full frame camera. So there you have it. Can I use the DJI Osmo Action 3 in a well-lit environment? And will it give me the quality of image which I need? Well, here are my honest thoughts and opinions. When shooting photos in RAW, because the digital zoom is deactivated when you open the RAW photo in your RAW editor, unless I'm doing something wrong, I cannot see the sense of the digital zoom being active on the Osmo Action 3 when the RAW photo mode is selected. When shooting JPEG photos, the standard dewarp mode on the Osmo Action 3, which is the equivalent of about 14mm on a full-frame camera, is too wide for what I wanted. Therefore, my only option was to use the digital zoom to lose that distortion in the wide field of view and be able to compose each image the way I wanted to. In my second example photos, where my Osmo Action 3 was again used in manual exposure mode, the photos were exposed correctly on a day with plenty of light at high shutter speeds and with a low ISO value to keep noise at a minimum, and using the digital zoom at 3 or 4 times magnification. Unfortunately, the image quality was poor. Definitely not the quality which I needed. Now, another point to bear in mind is that the Osmo Action 3 is not the easiest camera to use for taking still photos, especially if you are using manual exposure mode. You need to go into the manual exposure menu and change your shutter speed and change your ISO to get your correct exposure every time that you want to take an image, as well as needing to adjust the digital zoom to the desired composition. Also, the digital zoom resets every time you review an image on the back of your camera, which means that you constantly need to set your digital zoom again and again. So, the difficulty of use of the Osmo Action 3 for taking still photos, together with the poor image quality produced by using the digital zoom to compose photos and reduce distortion, means that, quite honestly, I will not be using the Osmo Action 3 to take photos on another occasion, unless I really need to take a photo and I have no other camera at hand. I love my Osmo Action 3. Its size, its build quality, and all the amazing features which it has for taking absolutely incredible video. But in my opinion, it is not made for taking photos. So I will continue to use my Osmo Action 3 for my behind the scenes videos, for blogging, for underwater, time-lapse, slow motion and hyperlapse videos, but I will use my Panasonic Lumix S5 or my Sony ZV E10 whenever I need to take photos. And if for some reason I don't have one of those cameras with me, then I can use my Pixel 8, which also takes absolutely superb photos. If you have any advice or tips about how to use the Osmo Action 3 for taking better photos than I did, please do write them in the comments section of this video. Well, I hope you found this video interesting and informative. If you did, please click on the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring on that notification bell to be notified every time a new video drops on my channel. So, until the next time, this is Andy at Photech Video signing off. Take care and be safe.